Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Okay, so it's time for another episode of A Modeler's Life, and this is the very first episode since we did the last one.
Wow,
is it really? Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we haven't done...
Will it be the last one until we do the next one?
Possibly. That's, right now we're having meetings. We're trying to figure out the schedule, so...
Yes. I saw a horde of people down in the boardroom working on that.
Wow. Yeah.
A horde of people.
Well, there's four. That's big for the boardroom. You know, there's usually only Timmy in there eating his lunch.
Yeah. Timmy.
Yeah.
Tim who?
Timmy. You know Timmy.
Do you mean Tim?
That guy? The guy we hired to try to work on the green patch on the couch there?
Oh.
Apparently I wasn't in on that meeting.
Oh, well.
That was the first meeting since the last meeting.
It was.
All right. So, Bruce, why did you want to have this podcast?
Because it's a wonderful thing to do, and we bring joy and entertainment to a million listeners out there.
Yeah, a million viewers. We have Bruce, the moderately agitated mailboy, and Tony Cook, who is the editor of Model Railroad News, the creator of HO Scale Quarterly, the creator of AML Product News, and now this is why we're here, Bruce. This is very exciting, and we thought we would bring you in to see the awe and surprise on your voice and hear it in your voice, on your face and hear your voice. Tony, why are we here? This is exciting news.
We're going to talk about the new monthly program, the X2F Files.
Yes, where we go, we travel, we do a series of road trips to New Mexico, to Sector 12.
Sector 12. Whoa!
To see
that's right next to Morgan, isn't it?
Yeah. See if we can't uncover the secret of UFOs.
No. That was that program on Fox.
Oh, okay.
This is similar, but more about the history of trains.
The history of model trains.
Correct. So not as much conspiracy, and or aliens and government cover-ups. Yeah.
Yeah, but
are you sure?
Well, there could be some of that worked in there, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll find out.
We'll find out as we get through it. Yeah.
Well, what about the conspiracies of the manufacturers to only produce products for a certain period of time, forcing buyers to buy them that they didn't really want them, but they were afraid they'd miss out?
I don't know if they may not be exclusive just to model railroading. That may be in a lot of things. The thing I would love to uncover the rule that seems to exist that we don't have a model of something and then we have at least three.
That's right. They all come out at the same time.
Exactly. But what we need is, and then suddenly there's four of them on the market. And of course, nobody likes any of them. They've got a problem with every one of them.
That's right.
Yeah, we were actually...
That one's got one too many rivet on the nose. The prototype never had that one. Blah,
exactly,
blah, blah.
Yeah.
We actually did a podcast not that long ago, or maybe it hasn't been out. Maybe it in a while. Wait a minute, let me tell you. The subject of the podcast was, and it was actually Spoon's idea, Mike, the Spoon Ostertag. It was actually his idea. Which side of the tracks do you model from? I started to make the point of locomotives have to be exact. Cars have to be exact. All the track has to be as exact as possible. But then you start building the layout and people go, oh yeah, well I can't fit that in there. So that's sort of like what it was. Can you imagine if they built locomotives in and out and came out with their latest version of the Tier 4 Gevo, and it was like, well, yeah, it was kind of like this, but we really didn't have room for it, so we shortened it up by four scale feet, and instead of three axle trucks, we just put two axle trucks on it. Can you imagine if they did that? So, yeah. So,
I think some manufacturers have done that.
I was going to say there's a few models that come to mind that that could fall into that category of, well, some liberties were taken. Yeah.
And they sold wildly well.
Well, some better than they should have, maybe. Yeah.
All right. So the X2F Files is going to start. Are you going to start at the very beginning, like before there was even wheels?
No. It will jump around, and will primarily be a lot of HO, but there'll be some of the other scales too. Maybe at some point we'll figure out how N scale got lost in the hobby.
Yeah.
As we know. But in general, these are just, they're fairly short, one single subject programs where we go down and look at one specific thing about the hobby. One will actually even be the X2F coupler, explaining where it came from and, why does it have that name, and, some of that kind of stuff. So I think it'll be a fun, they're just kind of, it'll be similar to the news podcast that it's, 5-10 minutes and just kind of covers the subject and gives you a little bit of information about it. Or maybe if it's something you'll find out something you didn't know about it before.
It's a cool idea.
We're bringing edutainment to the listeners. Edutainment.
It is, yeah, it would be.
It was a cool idea, and I love the name X2F Files. So
I got the theme going through my head right now.
Yeah. Well, there's got to be some kind of yeah, the exit music. We need some sort of Martian-y kind of, outer.
Played on the theremin.
Theremin, yes, the theremin. Yeah,
theremin. That's it. Yeah.
What's the theremin?
Those the thing that basically does like the Star Trek or 50s sci-fi music cues is this long, flat looking, it's kind of a keyboard looking thing, but I don't think it's really a keyboard. Then it has a rod
and you use your hands in an electrical field
and it makes the noises. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So maybe we should have a whole show called the Theremin. The Theremin Files.
I think so, yeah.
I vaguely have
probably find one on eBay and bring it in for testing.
And apparently my idea of keeping the cameras on isn't working. I have a vague recollection of seeing somebody standing in front of a machine and making it make sounds, but I did not know it was called the theremin. I thought it was
And I think it is most famous for it does the cues or effects for science fiction or horror type movies of the 50s, 60s is where it really got its claim to fame. But I don't know how far back it goes or where that would be an interesting thing to know.
Yeah, that's what we need. So can you give us so how did you come up with this idea, Tony? I love the name.
Oh, the X2F Files?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, I thought maybe the theremin. I thought I was going to get credit for having created.
Yeah. How did you come up with the theremin idea?
No, the X2F was based kind of on some of the postings that we have on Facebook, where folks will talk about older products and things in the hobby. And then as I'm working on stuff with HO Collector Quarterly or doing from the archive for the back of Model Railroad News, I think, there's a little bit more to this that would be fun to talk about, or, kind of maybe make a short version of an article and just kind of hit the high points for somebody interested. And that's what I came up with. And like I say, we'll have them available one a month to go in with kind of in rotation with the news.
All right, and will it be like the last day of the month, or will I be in charge of keeping track of that?
You'll be in charge of unveiling those. I'll send them to you, but you'll pick whatever. Yeah, what the news usually hits every other Friday, so it would be in. I guess that would probably be a convenient spot to have it show up.
This seems like a job like I should give to Barb or something. So you're going to send me like a whole bunch of them, and I got to keep them straight?
I thought I'd send them one at a time. I have about a half dozen recorded, but for simplicity, I thought I would just roll them out to you.
I'd go that way. If you ever want any resemblance of them going out in the way you were hoping. What? I wasn't supposed to release all 4 of them today?
or I have visions. You got one of those baskets that you put the cards in and spin it around. And you grab one out, and it's this one this week.
Yeah, so I guess what we're doing right now is kind of an introductory to the very first one. We'll attach the very first one to this little introductory, will we?
There we go. Yeah, we can do that.
We're going to need a T-shirt. The X2F Files. What a great name!
It is a cool thing. Yeah, I think it'll be neat. I'm eager to, and hopefully there'll be folks that'll ask for things. You know, tell me about this or what's the story on that. Because that has been one of the neatest things about doing HO Collector is the people that have come forward with information they have or wanting more information on certain topics. And, well, I've always wondered about this or that model. Can you tell me more about it? And then getting in and doing the research on it and having those stories show up is a fun part of doing that publication.
I just thought of a great idea for you, Bruce.
What's that?
I don't necessarily expect you to do this by yourself, but we could do short podcasts because you are kind of a historian of the hobby.
Somewhat, not as much as
No.
Mr. Cook here. This
No.
guy's a wealth of information.
Well, hear me out, though.
Okay, I'm willing to give you a shot.
Individuals in the hobby.
Okay, like
You know,
Frank Ellison.
Frank
or,
Ellison, John
Armstrong.
Lynn Westcott.
We're thinking alike here. This is scary.
Yeah. I think that would be a great podcast. Now, the only reason
Al Kalmbach.
Al Kalmbach, the only reason it works is because I'm not doing the research. You like
Yes.
research.
Yes.
You select the person, you select
Right.
the individual, and then we have a little chit chat about it.
Sounds like a swell plan.
Yeah.
I know. Wouldn't that be a great idea?
I think that's a very good idea. I like that a lot.
Yeah. What would we call that? They couldn't call it the X2F Files because that's already taken. Or you could go with like old guys in the hobby.
Famous old guys in the house.
Yeah, famous old guys from through the years. And then somebody else you'd want to include in there is Bobby Hall.
Right.
And it was spelled Bobby with an E and then HALL, right?
It's BOBBYE.
Yeah, Bobby with an E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Now the questions will get easier as we go along here.
Oh, good.
And then, so did you know of her, Tony?
I met her in the early 1990s. That I was in her shop in Dallas, and went in there. Probably would have been 92, maybe. And I had one of the Hallmark El Capitan passenger cars, and I'd just gone in on a shopping trip, and she was there. And I'd mentioned that I had one of her cars, and it was the first brass import piece that I'd ever had in my collection. And she was everything you always hear the stories about. She goes, "Oh, you have one of my Santa Fe cars. That's great." She was very nice. But yeah, just a couple minutes.
How did she get into the business? Do you know?
She starts in the business when she and her husband were in Omaha during World War II, that he had something in the military, and they were visiting a local hobby shop that was near the hotel that the military had them staying in. And she had said to her husband, "Wouldn't it be neat to have a hobby shop like that?" And then didn't think anything of it. And then a year or so later, they're back in Dallas after the war, and he went and rented the location, I think on Bryan Street in Dallas, and came home and told her, "Hey, remember when you said that one time about a hobby shop? Well, I just rented a building for you. You can start a hobby shop." And in her book, she said it was kind of one of those, "Oh, yeah, I kind of remember saying that a year or two ago, but no, I hadn't thought about it since, but okay." And she tells the story of sending a check for $7,500 off to a hobby wholesaler in Chicago with a note saying, "Please send me materials so I can stock a hobby shop."
Wow.
And think about, I mean, this was, I think it's 47, 48. $7,500 is a good chunk of change.
Oh yeah,
That's a pile of money.
That's like three cars.
She said they sent, she got a huge shipment to start the store with a letter saying you have so much in credit because due to the war just being finished, there wasn't enough product or stock to fulfill the full $7,500. But that's how she got started in the shop. And then she got into like that. I think it's the HIAA, the Hobby Industry Association of America, that she was in some of those groups for like the business end of the hobby. And in meeting certain people, she made contacts. I think it's with Don Drew of Pacific Fast Mail, and made trips to Japan, and then got set up with, I think it's Kumada, that did most of the early production for Hallmark. And her first is a GP7 and HO scale in the late 60s, maybe 1967, 8, 9, somewhere like that. And then Hallmark imported stuff forever.
And so it was like her hobby shop. It wasn't her husband started it and then she went off.
No. In fact, they ended up opening a second hobby shop that he ran. He worked with, I think, Red Ball Trucking out of Houston. And in fact, she originally was from the Houston area, and that's where she met her husband. And then they ended up in Dallas. He runs the second hobby shop for a while, and then they actually end up divorcing. And I don't know what happened to the second hobby shop that he had. That would be interesting to find out. I don't know what went with it, but the one that she had on either ended up on Bryan Street or was there before actually moves to a slightly bigger location, but still in that same area. And she runs it until she retires
forever,
which I think was around 2000 or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
I mean, she was really, amazing. Yeah, it was really something. And it's funny when she talks about those first brass imports, she'd had buyers coming in saying, gee, nobody makes, anything we like, because it was at the time it was all Pennsy or New York Central Big Eastern prototypes, and they wanted Missouri Pacific or Katy or Santa Fe locomotives. And she said, well, to basically, shut them up, she said, well, get the plans together and I'll see what I can do. And they showed up with plans for, I think it was either the Jeep 7 or one of the steam engines for the Mopac or Katy. And she, again, was kind of like, well, I guess I'll have to do something about this. And, got the thing set up in Japan to start importing brass. But really amazing when you think about how male-dominated the hobby was and really still is. I mean, like we have Stacy Walters-Naffa's now the head of Walters, but in general, there's not a lot of women that have been heads of businesses in the hobby. And she was back at a time when it was very uncommon.
Yeah. That is very cool. All right, so that's the kind of thing the X2F Files is going to be. And then Bruce, when your show starts, whatever you call it, what are you going to call it?
I don't know. I'm going to have to give it some thought to make it somewhat witty yet respectful.
Yes, witty but respectful. There you go. I love that. Okay, so should we attach the very first X2F Files to the end of this now?
There we go. Yes.
We got to get the big stapler out.
Yeah, you got to get.
The one that shoots the half-inch staples, right?
Oh, I think we got some duct tape around here. Yeah.
Okay. Or butterfly. Use one of those big giant butterfly clamps.
Yes.
There you go. All right. So one of you guys has to say, "Subway chime, go." Who would like to jump on that?
Well, why not let Tony have that?
Yeah.
That's his deal.
Well,
this is his baby.
And say it with gusto.
Subway chime, go.
Welcome to the X2F Files. I'm your host, Tony Cook. In this podcast, you'll join me for an exploration into the history of model railroading. Find out interesting facts about models as well as the companies that produce them. For the serious collector or casual hobbyist, you're sure to learn something new and useful to help enrich your model railroading experience. Do you remember The Hustler? Not the classic feature film starring Paul Newman and Jackie Gleason, but Athearn's little diesel switcher. Among the earliest HO scale plastic diesel models to come from Athearn in California was its Hustler diesel switcher. At the time of the Hustler's 1957 introduction, Athearn's HO scale diesel locomotive roster included the F7A and F7B and the GP9. The F7s came in the mid-1950s from Globe models, and the GP9 and Hustler appeared a couple of years after. The Hustler model reproduces no prototype and is a fanciful in-cab industrial switcher that includes a concoction of details derived from Athearn's GP9 and F-unit toolings. The model includes its name spelled out down the front grille of a body made up of a single injection-molded plastic shell. The one-piece die-cast metal underframe housed the two axles, high-F rubber band drive mechanism, and included two supports on the sides for the shell to snap in place with couplers mounted to the metal frame. The Hustler possessed a headlight bezel on its nose and a round headlight on the back of its cab. However, the design provided for no illumination, and both lights were solid parts of the plastic shell tooling. The only separately applied details were a pair of air horns mounted on each side of the hood near the cab face. The Hustler enjoyed a long career in Athearn's famous Blue Box line. The model actually predates the mid-1960s introduction of what is considered a typical Athearn Blue Box, and the Hustler survived into the 1990s. Athearn built its Hustler for other hobby companies to sell. Lionel sold Athearn Hustlers for a short time around 1960 and later conjured up its own copy. Lionel's Husky switcher may actually improve on its original source, as this clone model deviated from the Hustler's no-frills design, with Lionel providing a front headlight, and you'll discover a geared drive inside this offering. The next non-Athearn Hustler appearance was for Cox's line in the early 1970s. Cox had Athearn produce models during the first half of the 1970s, and the Hustler saw inclusion in at least 2 train sets, as well as being a separate sale item. Examples sold by Cox include Hustlers with the gear drive, which was unique to Cox's line. In the 1990s, following the passing of company founder Irv Athearn, the new owners returned many items to availability that had been difficult to locate during the 1970s and 1980s. Among the classic Athearn pieces to make comebacks was the Little Hustler switcher. Still a blue box offering then, the 1990 runs are the most recent that you'll find for this switcher. There's more to the story, and you can read it and see an assortment of color model images and find a collector checklist for the Hustler in the third quarter 2018 edition of HO Collector. Brad E. Smith presents the HO Collector cover story, Athearn's iconic Hustler. Look for the gold Hustler on the cover of this edition of HO Collector. If your local book or hobby dealer doesn't carry HO Collector, you can purchase individual issues or subscribe by visiting shop.whiteriverproductions.com. Thanks for listening. I'm Tony Cook, editor of Model Railroad News and co-editor of HO Collector. Join me again for a journey through hobby history on the X2F Files. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to pursue more of model railroading's past, check out the monthly From the Archive column presented in each issue of Model Railroad News magazine. Model Railroad News provides coverage of new product announcements in the hobby and all popular scales, as well as books, DVDs, and other interesting items, as well as featuring some of the most in-depth reviews in the business. Visit the magazine's website at modelrailroadnews.com. Each quarter, you'll find a new edition of HO Collector magazine. HO Collector presents historically important models produced over the years in HO. You'll read model histories, discover behind-the-scenes facts and stories about those models, as well as the companies that produced them, and see great color photos to help in your collecting. Find out more by visiting HOTrainCollector.com.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You freely made the grade, and the papers want to know who shirt you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a...
It's another Lincoln Homer.